Good morning, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Just here around 10 a.m. watching the moon set. It's definitely still winter up in Alaska. So someone wrote me a question about Amanita Muscaria and its description as a dissociative and how that compares to other dissociatives. So let me read the question and I'll try to answer it for you. Due to complex PTSD from trauma, I have a tendency to dissociate when feeling overwhelmed. Things like weed and ketamine make me feel even more detached from my body. In your video with Lucy Bell on microdosing red and blue mushrooms, you mentioned that Amanita is a dissociative, but in a different way than other medicines defined as dissociatives. Can you share how these differ? What is meant by dissociative, and how does Amanita work and help the nervous system in this context? That is a great question. Although I do study the science of mushrooms, I feel that my place in this whole conversation is somewhere in between the science and the plant and fungal spirit medicine point of view. So let's talk a little bit about the chemicals in Amanita Muscaria to start with. Ibotenic acid and muscimol are two of the most interesting indoles and most psychoactive indoles in the Amanita Muscaria caps. Ibotenic acid is the prodrug or the precursor to muscimol. So when the mushroom is fresh, and I don't recommend eating these mushrooms fresh or really any mushrooms fresh, they do need to be like cooked or processed. You can drink the water off of a cap and get a lot of ibotenic acid, but let's just say that you collect some Amanita caps and dry them, mix them together to average out the indoles per cap, as they do vary. You're going to get a lot more ibotenic acid in that just dried state without processing it any further. Ibotenic acid is a neurocauterizant. It severs nerves. So this indole is especially good for PTSD because PTSD, part of it is the nerve synapse repeating itself in a negative context. You learned something, perhaps there was a trauma response that helped you in that moment, but that response is no longer useful because that moment is over. And people that are reliving these trauma responses are perceiving the world with a lens of fear. So the ibotenic acid helps to like cut those patterns, and from there you can forge a new pattern. So this indole is also why the Amanita Muscaria is useful for chronic pain more so than the sacred blue mushroom. And so that's a little bit about the ibo acid. Muscimol comes from further decarboxylating the mushroom, doing things to the mushroom like making a tincture, making the dried mushroom caps into a hot tea. I make honeys. Any sort of processing further of the mushroom further decarboxylates the indoles. So you will have a product that has more muscimol the more you process it. Muscimol is what they use for flying ointment. It's the dream indole. It's the one that makes you sleepy and tired. So when I make my Amanita medicines, it's a little different than when I make my sacred blue mushroom medicines because I work a lot more with the processing to create a different effect. Okay, I haven't really gotten to the question yet, but there is a baseline. The muscimol of the Amanita Muscaria is what I would say well, they're both really dissociatives. I mean, neurocauterism, you're cutting the nerves, you're severing the nerves and creating a space for more change. Cannabis, let's talk about the plant spirit of cannabis. So cannabis is a plant. It is a very resinous plant. It is a very sticky plant. And really, if you're looking at all this through the lens of plant spirit medicine, cannabis has been highly manipulated up until this point. We have genetically altered the cannabis to suit a higher high. It's not the way it used to be. When the plants and fungi were more natural, before we farmed them and did genetic altering through cloning and creating strains that did this or that were stronger and stronger, there wasn't as much THC in cannabis. So I do still work with cannabis, but I do not smoke cannabis anymore. And I smoked a lot of cannabis. It was very difficult to quit. And I noticed, especially towards the end, that I just could not do it anymore. It exacerbated my mental health, any mental health issues that I was going through, depression, anger, extreme emotional response, inability to eat. So things that it actually helped me with maybe in the beginning, it started to make worse, and I became very dependent on it. I've noticed that when I go back to cannabis after taking a long break, it is highly medicinal. I can do certain types of work on myself with Reiki and with just feeling the energy of my organs and the chi in my body in a really powerful way. But cannabis is very, very sticky plant medicine, and she loves the human experience, as does Amanita. They're very earthly medicines, and so when we ingest a plant or a fungal medicine, just as we are taking on that plant spirit and having an experience, the plant or the fungus is having the human experience. So they will resonate with certain people. Like, I believe that the cannabis enjoyed manifesting in my body, and in many of your bodies as well. But I would like to touch on the fact that I believe that there are certain plant and fungal medicines for the times, things that we're going through collectively that require different shifts in consciousness, and certain plants and fungi are more adequate or adept for those times and those leaps in consciousness that we need, or those, it just depends on what the world really is going through. So there was a time when we really needed to chill out, and we needed to go within, calm down from that grind. Maybe let's just say, like in the 80s, cocaine was super popular. It was like work. Reagan was the president. It was the war on drugs, and it was just a time of like everything was just like very bullish and very, very go get 'em and get out there and just work and just big, like loud. After that, we kind of like needed to calm down. So I feel like the 90s going into earlier 2000s, there was like a lot of weed, and actually cannabis became legalized in more states during that time, and was more looked at as a medicinal plant. Like we opened our minds to it, and there was a big movement in like east to west. Yoga became very popular, and people were having these like heady like experiences, and also like we were just kind of like recovering from that push of the 80s. So now I've noticed that the cannabis, like, it dulls, and I think we're moving into a more shamanic time where people are wanting to get to know themselves more, and they're looking for more clarity instead of like a dulling experience that takes you out of your body. They want to go like more within, and maybe we're even moving beyond that to something that's like, okay, I've done a lot of healing. Now I just want to be happy so I can function and function well, have clarity of thought, like move beyond this PTSD. I've wallowed in it for long enough. I'm ready to go forward and do my work on this planet, basically. So I feel like we're going from cannabis to the psilocybin, now to Amanita, and more plant medicines are going to come to light. Things that have been really suppressed by humanity, and that we've been told are poisonous, they're going to come to light as medicinals. It's all about dosing. If you take a lot of Amanita, you are going to dissociate. Like, you are going to fly. You are going to probably also get sick. But like any medicine, if you take a certain dose that's smaller, it can be very medicinal. It's like, you could look at it even like Western medicine. A small dose of Tylenol gets rid of your headache, and a large dose can kill you. Like, there's so many. I don't even want to go into it because it's triggering, but you understand what I'm saying. And sensitive people, they do not need a lot of these medicines. You can use Amanita topically. You can take a little tiny bit of it, and that's fine. Even with the psilocybin mushroom, you don't need to go on a giant journey. You don't need to. I mean, you can, and that's really helpful for some people. And sometimes I do, but it's not often that I do that because I am very sensitive. So I need to like stay grounded. I prefer to stay grounded. So I do that just once in a blue moon. And with a very conscious set and setting. And it's not a contest of how much you can take. You know, some person might say, oh, well, I take, 10-gram trips once a month. Well, that's nice. And I'm glad that helps you, but that is not for everybody. So, and I think that mentality can be really damaging for people that may have otherwise benefited a lot from microdosing. And if 0.15 of a gram of psilocybin mushrooms or 0.5 of a gram of Amanita mushroom is too much for you, then it just is. Like, you need less. You need less. If you need a subperceptual dose, I think it might still benefit you. Don't be afraid. You don't need to follow the crowd. You need to follow yourself, your heart. You are a unique individual. So your protocol will be unique. Ketamine, I don't know very much about. I was not super drawn to synthetically produced medicines. It's not really my cup of tea. I've tried it a couple times. I didn't really like it. I do know that it's quite addictive and it can be quite damaging for the bladder. And I've had friends that became extremely addicted to it, and that was very damaging for them, and it was difficult to be around those people, and I've lost friends because of that. So I'm not a real big advocate for ketamine because I've seen the damage that it's done, and at the end of the day, there is no. Now, if you like Sasha Shulgin, I do. I love the book Pikal. And it opened my mind to the synthetic world of psychoactive substances a little more than I was before. But for me personally, I love the old like earth spirits of fungus and plants. That's just my preference. So, ketamine is made in a lab, and you can feel the energy from, especially if you're sensitive, which if you're using it to treat something like PTSD, you are probably sensitive. You're going to feel the energy of that lab, of that synthesis, of that human being that made it. You can look at these things metaphorically, like which books do you like to read? Which drugs do you like to take? Which plant medicines do you like to take into your body? Everyone is different. So I can't I can't really say what is the best, but I think that certain medicines are more timely, and dosing is going to make a difference, of how you dissociate, how you dose. Do you dose topically? Do you dose internally? Do you take a product that has been more decarboxylated when it comes to Amanita? With cannabis, are you smoking a really strong pot? Are you smoking a lot? Are you stoned most of the time? I mean, at that point, you're quite dissociated. When are you coming back? Is it easy for you to leave behind? Do you think about it when you're not doing it? That was something with cannabis that I couldn't stop smoking it. Whereas with the fungal medicines, I feel much more free, like to take them or not take them. I'm not sure if I really answered this question well. Maybe I'll come back to this in another video, but I just wanted to touch on those points, and hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for watching.